Good evening. Good evening, roommates. Come on in, come on in. Good evening, good evening. Come on in, roommates. Happy Roommate Tuesday. Good evening, good evening. Hello there. Say hi as you come in the room. Hey y'all. Hi there. Good evening. Hey Brown Fox. Hey Danny. I see you. Hey roommate. Come on in, come on in. Good evening, good evening. Drop a few purple hearts, roommates, if you know someone who has been a victim of domestic violence or domestic abuse, or you yourself have personally endured that. Drop a few purple hearts. Hey y'all, come on in. Come on in. Hey Bo. Hey cousin. I know you love them purple hearts just in general, but thank you for dropping some tonight. Hey cousin Tamika. Come on in, guys. Happy Roommate Tuesday. I am so happy to be here with you all, per usual. I know y'all always hear me say that, but I mean it wholeheartedly. Come on in. We'll give people a few minutes to come on in. Yes, I see you all on Instagram. Hey y'all. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in. Drop some purple hearts and say good evening to your roommates. We are in here together, figuring things out, learning together, growing together, figuring things out together. Hey y'all, hey cousins. I see my cousins in here tonight. Hey Tina. Hey Sister Sean. Welcome. Good evening, good evening. So we're going to jump on in because we have a lot to discuss, and I just want to be able to get through a lot of the content that I studied to be here with you guys for. So I definitely am thankful and grateful that you all are joining. And hey Brown Fox, good evening. Drop a few purple hearts as you come in a room and say hello to your roommates. So I gave you all a precursor, right? Today is October 1st, and October, the entire month of October is not only National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but it is also a month of breast cancer awareness. So the entire month of October, and we have 5 Tuesdays in October together. So the entire month of October will be dedicated. Hey, Crystal Moore, thank you for joining. Love you, girl. And the entire month of October, we will be dedicating to domestic violence awareness and breast cancer awareness. So we will break all of this stuff down as much as we can. I am looking and trying to secure right now some breast cancer specialists to come and talk to us and provide us with inside details and education on breast cancer and screenings and all of those great things. So just know that we will be talking about this stuff, and it's going to be some very touchy subjects. And if I can be completely transparent, I dreaded this day. today or whichever day that I had to sit and talk about domestic violence, just because of my personal experience with and in domestic violence. So we'll jump right on in, and per usual, we'll start out with, my hair is kind of blocking my shirt, but we'll start out with the message that is on my shirt. So you see a young lady depicted with a domestic violence awareness hat, with the purple hat and the ribbon for the awareness. And my shirt says that you have a support squad. You are not alone. And I said, when we started this thing off many weeks ago, we're on week 10. Wow, can you guys believe that? I said long time ago that I sit here before you because either I've experienced personally things that I talk about, or I have either had to professionally or personally help someone through. And either I've been through it, seen somebody else go through it, or have gotten through some of the things that we talk about. And domestic violence is one of those things on the list. I'll start out with a Bible scripture, which comes to us from Luke 26:29. How ironic is that? That's my birthday, June 29th. So Luke 6:29 teaches us that we are to resist using violence, even in retaliation for violence used against us. I know, it sounds odd and crazy, but also Romans 12:19 reminds us that vengeance belongs to the Lord. So I know we hear oftentimes like turn a cheek, but at the end of the day, we have to understand that vengeance is not ours, and that we should really resist using violence, even if it's in retaliation to violence that has been put upon us. Before we jump into like what domestic violence is, I really wanted to give you guys a disclaimer. And I'm going to ask this question. Has anyone ever heard the professional acronym SME? SME. If you have, drop it in the chat. It's a professional acronym, and it's SME. So it is with a bittersweet heart that I sit here and admit to you all that I am a SME, a subject matter expert regarding domestic violence and abuse. Not because I'm a licensed clinical social worker, but because I have personally overcome and have been a victim of domestic violence with multiple perpetrators in my own life. So when I say this is a difficult conversation to have publicly, I mean that with everything in me. So I know that I said that this is kind of bittersweet, and I can hear some of you guys saying now, well, what's sweet about it? But before I tell you what's sweet about it, I'll tell you what's bitter about it. So the bitter part of these things is that no one should ever have to endure abuse being inflicted upon them, right? It is really a scary moment to be in, whether it's someone that you know or whether it's someone that you don't know. But what we will talk about is kind of like that difference between, violence, domestic disputes, and domestic violence. And so contrary to me being that subject matter expert and it being, really like a bitter thing to have to endure violence and having to overcome that while you're working towards like the things that you are in life. You're being a parent, you're working a job, you're going after your career, you're in school, you're doing all of the things that you need to do to kind of stay focused, but yet you are kind of held back in this space of being a victim of any sort of violence, very specifically domestic violence. But and then the sweet part, right? The sweet part about it is that we can and we will get through anything that comes to us. So though I sit here as a person who have been a victim of domestic violence, I can sit here and say that through all of those things, I've what I've learned is far greater than the abuse that was inflicted upon me, right? So what has being a victim of domestic violence taught me? And you guys can actually drop in the chat if you know someone who has gone through, if you know someone who is currently going through, right? What are some of the lessons that you can learn from that or have learned from that? Okay. One of the things that I've learned is that domestic violence taught me everything that I needed to know about my opponents, thus the abusers. It taught me that they were insecure, that they were weak, that they preyed on who they thought was weak, and they themselves had their own hidden dark secrets that they just choose not to address, right? How do we address things that we are trying to overcome? Therapy. Find you a safe place. Talk to someone that you're comfortable speaking with and who won't judge you or blame you for what you're going through. Sean says that she believed the sweet part is that you are no longer a victim. Amen. Amen. Also, that she's learned that once it starts, it doesn't stop, no matter how many times they apologize. And I agree with that, Sean, because the best apology is by actions, is to literally stop doing the things that you are doing that is inflicting harm upon someone else, right? They're simply projecting. I said that in a different way, Danny, but you are so right. So those fears, those insecurities, those areas of rejection, those areas where they have felt powerless themselves, whether it was when they were a child, a lot of times it resides in your childhood. Something was missing or something was present that was detrimental to that person's growth. And when we have adverse childhood experiences, whether that is abuse, whether that is neglect, whether that is witnessing violence, it has an adverse effect on us, no matter how strong we think we are, no matter how bigger than a situation we think we are. Those unresolved matters within ourselves lead us to be perpetrators to others in the exact same way that someone perpetrated us. If those issues or those problems or those situations remain unresolved and a person chooses not to really go and seek the professional or supportive help that is needed to help them overcome that mindset, right? Hey, Sister Garo Hicks, love you. Another thing that it taught me is to be resilient in adverse times, to steadfast even when I wanted to buckle, even when you want to run and just go into a dark room and put your head on the pillow and scream. You can do that, but don't get stuck there, right? Find your means of overcoming those very things that are meant to destroy you and meant to tear you down. Find a way to be resilient. And in resilience, you find ways to cope while also incorporating strategies to help you move forward, even in it. Even as it is occurring, you find means to work your way out of it. You don't dismiss it, and we'll talk about dismissiveness. You don't even pretend that it's not occurring, but you do have to find that safe place to be okay in the things that is meant to tear you down, and in the domestic situations that you may find yourself in. So it also taught me like how to fight back spiritually and emotionally. Right? Remember we talked about in Luke 6:29 that we should never ever retaliate violence, even if someone is inflicting violence upon us. And what fighting back can look like when it's not physical and it's not in the form of violence, you can pray for the situation, you can pray for the person. You can find ways or solutions to get yourself out of that situation. And then you can spiritually fight back through prayer, through fasting, through the church and God, and finding those means to be okay even when you're not. And then emotionally, we have to find ways to respond in the most healthy ways possible. So if you have someone that's constantly yelling at you, hitting on you, tearing you down in different ways, you do have to find a way to fight back, but you also have to find a way to combat that situation when you're in it, right? Thank you, sister. I appreciate that. You have to find a way to non-violently fight back. And I say we do that spiritually and emotionally. Domestic violence taught me my own self-worth. While I was in it, I felt the lowest about myself that one could feel. I was in the deepest valley. And though I had people around me, I felt so alone. You know, I'm thankful for the people who were there for me, right? You have to find that safe place. Hey, sister, safely fight back. Yes, prayer brought me out of a relationship with my son's dad, and I'm thankful for you with that, Danny. And let's go a little bit further with that. Let's help our roommates, including me. How do we navigate in abusive situations when children are involved? You have a child or a set of children by a person who is inflicting harm upon you, right? How do we fight back? How do we reclaim our lives? The biggest lesson that I learned is that don't take a destructive route with trying to find your voice. I literally drunk myself under the table for many years, trying to, the only time I could find the courage to say something was if I was intoxicated. Otherwise, I just sat back and took what was happening to me, and never really fought back. And again, when I speak of fight back, I'm never one. Violence does not beget, I don't want to use violence, right? I want you to stop doing the things that you're doing to me. And so I wouldn't dare want to do that by using the same approach that someone is using with me. Okay? So, thank you, sister. So let's do a couple of noteworthy definitions so we can kind of know the difference between some of this stuff. Remember, we're going to talk about this all month long, and we're going to have a show dedicated to emotional abuse, because that is a heavy one, and that one is a bit tricky, because sometimes people think that emotional abuse could be just simply that they are expressing themselves. But what about the person that is enduring those things that you are saying to them? It's just not good, right? So let's talk about a domestic dispute. So a domestic dispute is when people who live together, usually family members, and there may be a big argument of sorts, and sometimes it may turn violent, not all the time. This can cause someone to call the police, right? And a dispute is just that. We are at odds. We don't, we're not agreeing. And it may sound harsh, but it may not lead to the level of violence. And so that's a domestic dispute. But domestic violence is when someone hurts another person in their household, whether it's a spouse, a child, a roommate, a sibling, you know, of relation to you. Remember, it's never a stranger when it comes to domestic violence and domestic disputes. So since we've defined domestic dispute, let's answer the question, what is domestic violence? It is violence committed by someone in the victim's domestic circle. This includes partners and ex-partners, immediate family members, other relatives, and family friends. The term domestic violence is used when there is a close relationship between the offender and the victim. So again, we're talking about some sort of true violation that most likely it includes some sort of violence. The definition of domestic, and I think I just said that a moment ago, is when it's a family member. It's within close proximity. It is not a stranger. I think I said that 3 times, but we gotta be mindful of that. Now, you may hear the term domestic violence and domestic abuse used interchangeably, right? So it's with an intimate partner where violence is erupted. It can be defined as a pattern of behaviors in any relationship that is used to gain or maintain power and control over an intimate partner. What are the forms of abuse that shows up in domestic violence? The forms of abuse. Physical, that's the obvious, right? Sexual, emotional, economic, financial abuse, and psychological actions toward someone. Yes, you guys got it. I love it, right? But then what are some of the consequences? So if someone is a victim of domestic violence, what does that look like? What does a victim of domestic violence, what are some of the behaviors that they portray? They're frightened. They're afraid of their partner or whomever is inflicting that harm on them. They are intimidated. They feel terrorized. They feel manipulated. One of the most confusing things that I have ever experienced is for someone that I love to mistreat me, and I don't understand why. They're jumpy around their partner or their perpetrator. In other words, Sean, they are walking on eggshells, right? Don't we hear that a lot? And I'm going to have a story time soon enough. But I think that it is important that we understand that these are some of the symptomology. Like, this is what it looks like when a victim is in a domestic violence relationship. It just looks very grim, very dark. It just does not feel good on no level, right? They have their own dark secrets, right? You don't want to burden people. Remember we talked about burdens. You feel like you are a burden. I want to publicly thank my best friend and a couple of more supporters who have been here with me through my trials and tribulations in domestic violence relationships. Because if I wanted to talk about it 1,000 times and I went back 999 times, I was never judged. I was always validated in my feelings, validated in my stance, and even validated in my going back. And those are the people that you have to have in your corner in those darkest hours. Sean says she suffered for silence in years. Many of you on this live who are live with me, others will watch it later, but most of you all have lived with me through domestic violence and never knew I was going through. And it's because I had a small circle of comfort, a small circle of safe space that helped me to understand that, one, I was not the cause of what was happening to me, and two, I would get through this. And that if I needed to talk about this, I could talk about this to them, or they gave the advice that I go to God. So Sean, I understand like suffering in silence, because there are many times that I went back to my perpetrator and I snuck behind my circle of support and to do that. And then now I am back over there suffering in silence, right? Because I feel so foolish that I would even allow myself to go back into that, right? And then what are some other things that we feel when we are, or we show, is that we're humiliated. Sometimes we blame ourselves for the things that people are doing to us. And then, of course, let's not talk about covering up the injuries and the wounds that come along with that. That's a whole nother thing, right? Because it's one thing for someone to hit you and there's no scars. But it's another thing when you have that injury and those scars. Who does domestic violence occur or happen to? Who can it happen to? It can happen to anyone. No matter your age, your race, your financial status, your social status, your sexual orientation, your religion. It really doesn't matter. And the suffering in silence part, unfortunately, sometimes is tied directly to, like, you know, your religion and stuff. Not the abuse, but the fact that you don't want to tell anybody, because the abuser may be, you know, someone who is in leadership, someone who is literally of power, right? So you feel like you won't be heard because this person have more influential power socially than you do. Okay. Danny says, because you never know when the abuser will go into a rage. Nobody is exempt, Tasha. Nobody is exempt. We don't tell people because we are ashamed. There is so much guilt and shame associated with being involved in being a victim of domestic violence, right? Because you really want to be like, oh, it can't happen to me. Oh, but it can. Oh, but it can. Okay. So this is good. This is really good. So I am going to pose a question. Have you ever not loved yourself as a direct consequence of others around you not loving you and abusing you? Or have you ever been left to feel less than simply by existing? Domestic violence shows up in ways that many of us are not ready to talk about or willing to talk about. Because I remember in my bouts of being a victim, and we're talking about years, and again, multiple perpetrators. And I remember just not really loving myself because I would think like, how I cannot, I must not be lovable if this person that I love so much would choose to do this to me. Like, how could I love you so much and I wouldn't do anything to inflict any harm upon you? But you are so comfortable with tearing me down and so comfortable with wanting to destroy like anything that I have left inside of me. So it can be a very, very lonely place, and it can be a place where we reside in a lot of shame and a lot of guilt, as if we are the cause of the things that are happening to us. So do you think our abusers know that they're wrong? Do you think abusers know that they're wrong? Yeah. Why am I allowing this to happen to me? Right? We have choice. We have free will. We don't have to stand this. Why am I allowing this to happen to me? You're absolutely right, Sean. But do you all believe that abusers know that they're wrong? I'll tell you this. People with controlling, unhealthy, and abusive attitudes know that their behavior is not okay. That's why they don't show it to most of the people in their lives. How many of your abusers came and walked up on you and violated you in front of their mom or their sister or their friends, right? Because the truth of the matter is they are ashamed as well. And they know exactly what it is that they're doing. Thank you, Yvette. Hey, sister. Sean says she thinks that they don't care. I don't know. I'll beg to differ. Just because, think about it. How many abusers are publicly abusing their victims? I've had intimate partner abusers, and then I've had non-intimate partner abusers. My intimate partner abusers always done it privately. Always. I can't think of a time, and I'll try to think of a time, but I can't right now, because remember, they are hiding some sort of guilt and shame themselves, and then somebody eventually gonna be like, man, yo, what's up with you? Why are you doing that? Hopefully someone would say that to them, right? It was always private. Yep. And so this type of behavior, when you know that a person knows better, but they're choosing you as their victim. And when I smile, guys, the back end of me is just thankful that I made it out. And it's really like a chuckle to the situation and to the perpetrator. Because how dare you be so comfortable to tear me down in private and make me have to fix myself up when I go out in public, only to make you look good and try to make myself look good when I feel so crazy. I'm super confused. How is it that you can put on this front like you are a dynamic son, a dynamic daughter, a dynamic friend, when you have literally turned my world upside down? Abusers don't care if they are wrong. They feel like they have the right to say and do anything that they want to their victims. That's powerful. When you think you have the right to misuse and abuse me, that's a whole nother level of insanity. I remember I used to look at one of my abusers and I used to say, I am somebody's mother. How would you like if someone did your mother like this? How would you like if someone done your daughter like this? How would you like if someone done your sister like this? it wouldn't feel good, and you would have a reaction. And that reaction probably would be you now wanting to inflict violence upon their perpetrator. But look at you, Mr. Perpetrator or Mrs. Perpetrator. Look at you. Right? So I talked about in the past, like how poised people, how we can be. How we can hold it together in the face of the public, in the face of on our jobs, in the face of our friends. Just clearly hold ourselves together and exercise restraint. But you completely lose your marbles when it comes to me, or when it comes to your victim, right? And I want you guys to remember this. The perpetrator doesn't change. The victim does. The actions may change as to, like, they may not always hit a person, but it may be emotional. But until that person gets the true help and address those underlying emotional issues within themselves, they're just going to switch victims. They're just going to switch victims, right? So the confusion is what I was speaking to. How confusing is it that you can sit here and look at your mate or look at your perpetrator, and they just acted so madman, madwoman like yesterday, and then today they are out there smiling like they running for a public office and treating everybody with glee. It is one of the most confusing things ever. So I want to say this because, sometimes people look at people's situations, and I'll speak for myself with this. A lot of people view me as being strong and being intelligent and being poised and all of those things, and I am. But sometimes people view you in such regard that they lose sight that you're human. I remember I had a person one day to tell me, because see, they knew the public figure perpetrator and they didn't know the private perpetrator, but they also knew me. So yes, I could be a bit feisty. Yes, I could be outspoken. Yeah, I'm all of those things. I'm not violent. Never have been, never will be. And I had somebody to come to me before, like, well, what are you doing to such and so to make them kind of, what is triggering? What do you do to trigger him or her? And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? So now you're going to blame me because that person is being violent towards me. Nope, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to allow you to do that. Like Tasha said, you're still human, right? So I'm going to say this to my roommates. I'm going to say this to my future audience. Never minimize a person's experience based off how strong they are. Some of us may be well-versed, and we may be able to mask those things that hurt our feelings in lieu of keeping peace or not upsetting the abusive person's status quo. But we have to never, ever minimize a person's experience. Okay, do we got that? Cool. So yes, you're still human. They should be very well aware of the things that they're doing to you, and they should keep in mind at the end of the day, don't do something to a person that you wouldn't want done to yourself, or that you wouldn't want to see happen to someone else that you love, right? And just never use violence against anyone. All right? So let's play a game. I want to play a game of Never Have I Ever. Yep, we're going to play a game of Never Have I Ever. So as it relates to domestic violence and domestic violence situations, I would love for you all to drop in the chat a few Never Have I Ever situations. And I'll read them. If I have, what they say, if you have, you can take a drink. If you have, you can put a finger down. If you have, you can, whatever you decide to do. So never have I ever. I'll kick it off. Never have I ever had someone whom I love and or value dearly tell me that they hate me. It is one of the most disheartening things to hear. For someone to tell you that they hate you and you honestly love them. I don't care if they moving out of hurt. I don't care if they moving just trying to get a reaction out of you. That is just not something that you say to anyone ever. Love begets love. All right, Tamika over there getting risky. Tamika says she gonna take a shot when she's doing something. All right. Never have I ever been the target in a relationship where no matter what or who made that person mad, I reaped the bad part of their anger. If someone outside made them upset, I reaped the consequences. That's 2 out of 2 for me. Never have I ever had someone to fight me on some of the biggest and most special days of my life. Not on just one occasion, but multiple occasions. That's 3 out of 3 for me. Story time. And before I go into story time, I want to say this. I want to say that when perpetrators are seeking to destroy you in whatever capacity that they've made up in their mind, I'm going to knock you down a peg. Oh, you think you important. Oh, people think this of you, but I'm going to let you know you ain't that. When you got people with them type of mindsets around you, you bet to get away from them and get away from them fast. Take the nearest exit out of the door. Because once they have that mindset about you, oh, you think you're important, I'm going to show you you ain't this, and I'm going to show you you ain't that, they going to show you. They want to destroy you. And unfortunately, I've had this to be the case for me more times than I would want to admit it. So the last never have I ever was, never have I ever had anyone to fight with me when it was like one of the biggest days of my life. Right? Sean said it's 3 out of 3 for her too. Tamika said it took her 15 years, but she out. Well, baby, you out. So that's what we celebrating today. Okay? So story time. I literally had 2 fights on 3 of the biggest days of my life with 2 of my perpetrators who, it was multiple perpetrators, but every time it was 2 people. When I graduated from high school, valedictorian of my high school class, if you know, you know, I had to fight with an intimate partner and a non-intimate partner. The day I graduated from high school, valedictorian on the stage, giving the farewell speech to my class of 178 people. I was the number 1 smartest student on grade out of 178 students. And after I left there and I went home out of that cap and gown, got cute, went outside, before the night was over, I fought with 2 people who should have been celebrating me and out in the streets having a ball with me. Just celebrate me because that's what I would have done with them, right? The day I graduated with my bachelor's degree, magna cum laude, And for those of us who have gone to college, if you graduate magna cum laude, you graduating at the top of your class, and that means that your GPA is a 3.5 or greater, right, out of a 4.0. So you're essentially graduating at the top of your class. So the day that I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I had a fight with two of my perpetrators. One was a intimate partner and one was a non-intimate partner. And then, y'all guessed it, the day I graduated with my master's degree, I had a fight with two of my perpetrators. Again, a intimate partner and a non-intimate partner. And I can look back today and I can dissect all of this stuff. And I can even think of ways that I probably could have approached situations to want to just like settle the dust and not be in those situations. But sometimes it's like, enough is enough. Like, how much do I have to endure for you guys to understand that I am only human? And anytime you got someone around you that when you are supposed to be celebrated, they are going out of their way to make sure that they make your day or your celebration miserable for you, again, you have to evaluate that situation. Family member, non-family member, lover, non-lover. You have to evaluate that situation so seriously as if your life depends on it. Because you have to create an escape plan. If you do not escape a situation where people are literally dismissing you for just of life. So it's like, so at this point, do you just want me like dead? Or do you really just want me under your thumb that well to where I can't breathe if you ain't around? Where I don't know who dad and called you God, but I can't do it. We're not doing that. So for all of my victims who have kind of been there, done that, I have got to tell you that you are not alone. Find your circle of influence and your circle of encouragement. Because ain't no way in hell you should be living like that in the moments that you should be the happiest and the proudest, especially of yourselves. So you got to make some decisions, people. We got to make some decisions. Okay. My cousin said, cousin, you know I know. Yeah, babe, you was there for most of it in one capacity or another. Okay? Let's finish with Never Have I Ever. We almost done. So we hit me with a 3 out of 3. Okay. Never have I ever been afraid of someone that I should have been able to trust with my life. Never have I ever sported a black eye. I done ran out of fingers, y'all. That's 5 out of 5. Got a couple more, so I'm going to put up 5 more fingers. Never have I ever used makeup to cover up bruises. Never have I ever walked on eggshells in lieu of someone else's peace while completely forgetting my own peace of mind. I love you too, Bunchi. Never have I ever gotten physically, verbally, or emotionally abused in front of my children. I have 4 children, 2 adults and 2 minors. And both of my adult children have either wrote me a letter at some point on my abuse journey or sat down at my feet and told me how much they hated this for me and how much they wish things were different. And I had to find a way to comfort them, though I was not okay. And never have I ever had someone to tell me that I ain't gonna be bleep without them. Look at me being some, y'all. I just have to laugh, guys. Because you cannot make this stuff up. We had 9 never have I ever situations. And yes, I have endured everything that I invite you all to admit in your safe space. I want you all to create an exit plan, whether you've made it through. If you know someone that's going through, stand in the gap with them. Pray for them. Be there for them. Have an open door policy when it comes to them. I could call my small circle of support at any hour, and they answered the phone. Because I know in their minds they were scared to death. Is this girl okay? And a lot of times I was calling, screaming for help on the other end of that line. How do we cope in abusive relationships? Sean says she has only 2 fingers left. So out of the 10, you had 8 out of the 9. My 2 oldest have told me this so many times. I've been told that so many times. But guess what? I'm making it happen all by myself. Go to God and choose yourself. And you're gonna get through it. I promise you. And let's not forget, victims are not just women. Victims are men as well. I have a friend personally that was constantly abused by a domestic partner. Constantly. And not just physical abuse, financial abuse. Will wipe his checking account out every time she got married. Max the credit card every time she got married. So I want to be very clear about that too. A victim is a victim is a victim, no matter the sexual orientation, no matter the race, the creed, the religion, or your gender. Abuse does not discriminate. Okay, how do we cope in a abusive relationship? Talk to a trusted friend, family member, or get you a therapist. Please get you a therapist. Take time away from your abuser. Even if it's time to spend with those people that are your support system. Make excuses to get away from them, even if you can't get away from them readily, because sometimes they're so controlling. That's part of that exit plan. But even if you're not exiting forever, find a way to distance yourself in between those violent episodes. And then get you a network of healthy friends and confidants that will help you feel less lonely and less isolated. Because being in domestic violence situations will definitely make you isolate out of that shame and guilt. Okay? So I need for my survivors to remember to never blame yourself for the actions of others. And do not internalize your abuse, as it is not, I repeat, it is not a true reflection of who you are, but more so who they are. You are literally a consequence of their actions and of their unresolved feelings and emotions. That, as I was posting for this week, I was using that song by Roddy Ricch. I love me some Roddy Ricch and some Rod Wave. My niece somewhere clapping when I just said Rod Wave. But them young boys be talking some stuff. And his song, Survivor's Remorse, his hooks says, in Survivor's Remorse, when I got me, when I got me, when I got me. Always remember that as long as you do not lose yourself in the process. Because remember, we're working to get out of it. You may not be able to do anything about it today, but we're working to get out of it. And as long as you don't lose yourself in the process, and even if you lose yourself, you regain yourself. And when you do, always remember you're the winner. They're weak. They're weak. They're insecure. They are living a life of lack. And I'm not talking about money. They lack emotional intelligence. They lack communication skills. They lack true love. They lack empathy. They lack sympathy. They are in lack. They are victims of their circumstances, and they are victimizing those who do not ask for it. Don't lose yourself in the process, roommates. And if you know someone, you let them know. Do not lose yourself in the process. Before you break up with your abusers, remind them that this relationship taught you that I gave you more chances than I should have. I valued you more than you valued me. You were not afraid to lose me because you thought no matter what, it was going to be hard for me to walk away. Never again would I allow someone to get so comfortable with disrespecting and violating me. And I'm taking my life back from you because this situation does not define me. Lastly, God's purpose is to deliver the abused. We are to be champions of the oppressed and abused. God hates the abuse of power and the sin of injustice. And you can find that throughout Psalm, 2 Corinthians, and Acts. I have to tell you guys this before I leave. If you or someone else is in an abusive relationship, you need support in leaving that abusive relationship, I'm going to pin the National Domestic Violence Hotline number, which is 1-800-799-SAFE. 1-800-799-7233. And that is if you feel like you just can't take it anymore. But if you are in immediate threat of harm, always, always, always call 911, being your support system next. My closing statement is brought to you by one of my good girlfriends, and I saw this on her post earlier this week. And Shantia, this resonated with me so well. Everything that I was afraid of have already happened. Today, I am free and I am fearless. I am not the product of a person who needs to seek help. I am a product of God, and I have come through, and so can you. Roommates, I am thankful for y'all. Y'all are my therapists. I don't care how much I sit up here and try to make it seem like I'm here for y'all. Y'all are here for me. I love you all. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. We are not done talking about this. October is completely devoted to domestic violence and breast cancer awareness. I love you all. I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care, roommates.